The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus took Peter, John, and James and went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, two men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a short shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen Son. Listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This psalm is great. I love this psalm. It's Psalm 27. And I love the responsorial psalm. The Lord is my light and my salvation. And I just love singing that. The Lord is my light and my salvation. It even reads on, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life's refuge. Of whom should I be afraid? Hear, O Lord, the sound of my call. Have pity on me and answer me. Of you my heart speaks. You my glance seeks. And so and it goes on. And it's just a beautiful psalm and a beautiful prayer, praising God and that just total trust in God in that. So hopefully you experience this same kind of thing in your heart, that total trust and love of God. And when we look at the transformation of these parishes, we look at this as it's based on a relationship that we have with God, that we have with Jesus. And so when the psalmist wrote this, they wrote this out of an experience that they have with God. That's how he writes this. And as we go on, again, with this, going through this book, forming intentional disciples, that we're kind of going over, about making and renewing these parishes and about bringing others closer to Christ. In order to bring others closer to Christ, we ourselves have to have a relationship with Jesus. See, if we're going to bring others to Jesus, to have them have a relationship with Jesus, we can't give something we don't have. And so making ourselves into disciples, there's a process that this book that mentions here. And there's 5 steps. There's 5 what they call thresholds, actually, that they talk about. And the first one is the initial trust. The second is spiritual curiosity. The third is spiritual openness. The fourth is spiritual seeking. And the fifth is intentional discipleship. And so we want to work towards that intentional discipleship. That's what we're really looking for. But when we go through these, I'll kind of go through these. Think about, where are you at with your relationship with Jesus in all this? How is your relationship with him? Because our goal is to get there, so how do you get there? So these are the steps that you need to get there. And then where are you at? Can you make those steps? And are you willing to make those steps? So the first one is, they call it initial trust. The initial trust. And so it says here, A person is able to trust or has a positive association with Jesus Christ, the church, a Christian believer, or something identifiably Christian. Trust is not the same as active personal faith. Without some kind of bridge of trust in place, people will not move closer to God. So first of all, do you have that initial trust? The simple openness are you willing to trust God to hear His word? Just simply to hear His word. And how much, we're always, in this process, we're always willing to build up that trust. How much do you trust God? How much do you trust Him? Are there things that are blocking you, and are you willing to trust Him with those things that are blocking you from that closer relationship with Jesus? And so we all have to be willing to say, I'm willing to trust you a little bit more. So that's kind of that initial trust. So when you talk to somebody else, do they even have that initial trust? Like you talk to a lot of atheists, they're not even there for that. Are you there for that, even to have that initial trust? And if not, then ask Jesus, Jesus, I need to begin that initial trust. Maybe there's a wound in your heart that keeps you from that initial trust. Just pray to Jesus. Jesus, I want to have this, but I just can't. There's too many wounds. I need your help. Right? So, and then pray for that person who maybe you're talking to. Maybe they don't have that initial trust. Ask our Lord Jesus to give them healing, whatever they need. And maybe you could be that source of healing for them before they can even trust. So being that good model yourself, and it starts there, but it's not just being a good model, letting them know that it's in Jesus Christ. The second threshold is spiritual curiosity. And it reads here, a person finds himself intrigued or desiring to know more about Jesus, His life and His teachings, or some aspect of the Christian faith. This curiosity can range from more awareness of a new possibility to something quite intense. So you're not getting into the intensity, but you realize that there might be something more here. And so it's just simply a curiosity. You're not actively pursuing anything, but you trust God. You've decided to trust. Now you're open to hear what somebody might say. So identifying that in a person, are they willing to hear that? If they're not willing to hear that, then you might have to work with them on trusting the relationship with Jesus. Hopefully they trust you. And it might take time for them to even trust you. And so even a trust in a relationship with a human being might be good. It might be the bridge, but the bridge is not to remain with just a person. You want them to build that trust to Jesus. And then they could be opened up to the life of Jesus and what He might possibly say. And so there's simply an openness to that. Where are you yourself in that? If you're not there yet, you can't bring anybody else there. Are you open to hear God's words? Are you open to what the church might have to say? Because Jesus Christ gave us Holy Mother Church, the Catholic Church, the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, to tell us what is the character of God. Because we can't transpose our will onto the will of God. We can't conjure up in our own mind what we think God likes and then look for a faith or look for a church that caters to our desires or to our model of what God is. We have to be willing to listen to what God actually is. That can be a scary step, to trust God in that way. Because that's that first thing of saying, okay, maybe God might be what I don't think He is. The third threshold is spiritual openness. And it reads here, a person acknowledges to himself or herself and to God that he or she is open to the possibility of personal and spiritual change. So you haven't made the decision to change yet, but you're open that you might change. That's where the idea is, boy, okay, I'm listening to what God says. I'm not doing the right thing right now. And I'm open to change. I don't know if I'm willing to yet. I don't know if I'm willing to change yet. Maybe there could be wounds in the past that might be keeping a person from moving beyond that threshold to say, you know what, I'm going to make that decision. Right now it's like, okay, I'm open to this. I just don't have it in me. Maybe there's things blocking you, spiritual things blocking you, or whatever. Ask for that healing. Go to adoration. Receive the grace that you need so that you can be willing to walk through that threshold. And of course, identifying that in another person. Maybe they're willing to listen, but are they willing to be willing for that change? You know, they see it, they acknowledge it, they know in their mind intellectually, but making that travel from the head to the heart to make that decision hasn't quite done there yet. And realize if somebody's in that place, God takes you where you're at. Jesus will take you where you're at, and he'll bring you closer to yourself. He's gentle, and he allows us to give us the grace to pull us closer to him so that we can have that courage. He doesn't force it on us, but he wants us to take those steps ourselves. He invites us to that deeper relationship with him so that we can be immersed more and more in his grace. The grace we receive in our own life is dependent on our willingness to be in a deeper relationship with him. And we will only receive grace insofar as we are willing to enter into a deeper relationship with him. So I encourage you and encourage you to encourage others to enter into that deeper relationship. The fourth threshold is spiritual seeking. The person moves from being essentially passive to actively seeking to know the God who is calling him or her. It is, if you will, dating with a purpose, but not yet the marriage. So now you're seeking God. You're reading the catechism. You want to read the Bible. You want to see what the Pope says. You want to find out more about their faith. That's where you start to have this desire to know God. So it's more of a driving force. You've made a decision, okay, I have to change. I'm going to really look forward to this. And I'm going to read more. What does this involve? What does this involve before I make that final commitment to change? So now you're investigating. Step 3, you're possibly open to it. Now step 4, you're looking into it. What does it take? What is the sacrifice that has to be made for me to change my life and to be with Jesus? So hopefully you can be willing to make that. And again, you're open to whatever God tells you, not to looking forward to what you think God should tell you, but whatever God tells you, and God challenges you in those instances and being okay with it, right? So just simply being open to God challenging it, you're not changing yet, but your heart is changing and the way you think is starting to change. And then threshold 5 is intentional discipleship. This is the decision, the willed decision to drop one's net, to make a conscious commitment, a willed commitment to follow Jesus in the midst of the church as an obedient disciple and to order one's life accordingly. So now your actions, everything about you is about Jesus. To make that intention to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this leap of faith. I've evaluated the sacrifice, and I'm going to do it. And this is where we all want to be. This is where we all have to be if we want these parishes to grow and if we want our life to grow in grace, to be imbued with God's grace, not only inside, interiorly, but exteriorly through our actions. And then we immerse ourselves into God's grace, and God's grace overflows onto others. And this is where we want all people to be, to bring other people to Jesus Christ and to trust in him. You imagine doing this, it takes an incredible amount of trust. Again, if you're not there yet, and of course, even if you're there, you still have to daily trust in him. You still daily have to say, Jesus, heal my heart. Heal me. Give me the grace to trust in you, to give my life really to you in all areas of my life. Because this is a process. You know, we always compartmentalize our life. You know, like in this area, it may be in my prayer life and my worship, I give this to you. But, you know, maybe my pocketbook, I have a hard time giving this to you, Jesus. Or maybe in my relationships, maybe my work, I have a hard time giving this to you. Maybe in this conversation with this one person that we have a hard time talking about Jesus. And I have a hard time. And it's like peeling the onion back, and it might be saying, Jesus, I give this to you. And the more you give yourself in all those areas that we compartmentalize, the more grace that we receive, and the deeper our relationship will be with Jesus. So I encourage you to do what you can to give your life to Jesus. We have some events going on. We got some retreats that might help you. We have the God Is retreat, which is actually March 19th. That's a Saturday. It's a one-day retreat. It's more of a lighthearted retreat. It's more fun. And that might be something, it's designed to help you get through one of these thresholds. Just take that one step at a time. Don't push yourself. God is patient with you. Be patient with yourself. But take the time, and don't be afraid to also push yourself a little bit to say, you know what, I do need to take that step. And then, you know, these retreats can help you. So the God Is retreat, the Light of the World retreat is also a great retreat. That's like a whole weekend long. That's the whole weekend long. Friday night, Saturday all day, Sunday all day, and then a Monday night. It's more of a commitment. But if you do that, it gets a little bit deeper. It helps you to take more steps. It helps you to be able to let go. You take the time with Jesus, especially if you got something that you really need to help you grow. We also got other events that are helping other people to make those steps in their faith. And so we'll kind of get to that a little bit later, and to help you, and then help you to guide other people to get these thresholds, through these thresholds, to come closer to Jesus Christ and to know his mercy and love. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face how awesome God is, because I have a relationship with him and I love him dearly. But quite frankly, I can keep on talking, but you're not going to get it, because that's based on an experience. And I can't give you that experience. I can open up the doors for you to have that experience, but you have to be willing to walk through that threshold to be able to experience God's healing power in your life and his love. And so I invite you to do just that, whatever it takes to walk through simply the next step to come closer to Jesus.